Welcome, it's Drew Blazek here with Logos and Markets, and in this example, we're going to go over the depreciation schedule, and we're going to go over a few different methods with it as well. So let's get right to it. Like with all my videos, the Excel sheet is found on the website Logos and Markets. You can find the link below the show notes, so you can get this file. Practice, you have the green cells. If it's correct, it's going to light up green, so you know it's good. And it has the application of it, so you're going to solve the depreciation and plug that into everything that has to do with depreciation. So let's look at the Excel sheet first. So the first thing you want to look at, what did I include in there? It has to do with depreciation. I hid everything that has not to do with depreciation. So the income statement, of course, we got the depreciation line. The cash flow statement, we have to add back in the depreciation. We'll go through all that. Then we got the balance sheet. The balance sheet here, we have depreciation is going to affect our long-term assets. And then we got our depreciation underneath that, nothing. So it has to do with the income statement, the cash flow statement, the balance sheet. Depreciation will not directly, you have to connect anything from depreciation to any other schedule. All right, so let's get to it. What we have, the first thing we want to do is we're going to look at years remaining on existing assets, and then we got depreciation years on new assets. So this will be an assumption. I'm going to go straight to our assumptions page. And before I forgot to mention, is always go over the grade. As you can see, if depreciation is not completed, the balance sheet will not be balanced, or if it's incorrect. And then you could look at the overall grade is if the number is correct, the weighted grade if you did it correct. Revenue costs has nothing to do with it. The income statement has that one line which messes up the majority of all the others if you get it incorrect. The balance sheet only really has to do with long-term assets, but it does affect other things if you get it incorrect with the numbers. So it's always good to analyze that. So, all right, first thing we want to do is we're going to bring in our depreciations. I'm going to go assumptions. That's going to be straight line right there, 25 years. And then the next is going to be on new assets, and we're going to say that was 30 years. Okay, so now we got our new assets. So the first projected year is 22. And what we want to do is we want to have our assets going vertical. However, in our I'm going to plug that in later so we don't have it up there. So what we want to do here is I'm going to go into that new asset and I'm going to say equal. And if you go to our assumptions page, if you notice that our capital expenditure, this is what we want to look at. We want to bring that vertical. It is horizontal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type this function. It's called a transpose function, and it's only in that first cell. So all I have to do is highlight those I want to transpose, and all it's going to do is make that horizontal vertical. Okay. Next, what we want to do is we want to find out what is the depreciation from existing assets. So we have to solve that. So that's going to be, I'm going to go all the way up and I have to find in our balance sheet our existing assets, and we don't have the projected ones yet. We'll project that out in a bit. But what we do have is I have the previous year, recorded year. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that number and I'm going to divide it by the years on existing assets. Okay, so I'm going to do that. Now, some people like to hit the absolute function, the function F4. What I like to do is just do it real quick and then hit enter and then drag that across. Right, it's always going to drag the previous. So we just took that that number of long-term assets we have, property, plant, and equipment, and I divide it by the remaining years of existing assets, brought it across. Now we have to find the depreciation for our new assets. So it's really important. First year is always half. It's the halfway roll. And what we say is half the assets are purchased within the first year. And then the second year, we purchase the rest of them. So you get like a full year with the new assets. But the first year, because we're not purchasing from the beginning, so we're not going to depreciate it from the beginning. We're just going to take the half point of it, or like we're saying average is purchased throughout the year. So what I like to do here is, and you want to get good at this, where watch me do it. Hit the reset button above, redo it over and over until you get this done, until you get it down. So I'm going to say the if function, and what we want to do is I'm going to do a logical test, and what I'm going to say is if this year is greater than this year, okay? In other words, if this year is 2023, which would be greater than 2022, I want nothing there because the asset hasn't been purchased yet. I'm not going to depreciate an asset that hasn't been purchased yet. So if this year is greater, so if it's 2026, I will not depreciate it in 2022. So that's why I do that. Then I hit comma. So if it is greater, I do the quote, so it's a blank cell. So it's real easy to do. If it's that's the true. If it's true, if it's greater, then I want nothing. If it's false, then I want another if function. Okay. So if it's true, I want that. If false, I want if this year, I'm kind of doing the same thing, is equal to this year. Okay. Remember, we do the halfway rule. I'm going to divide it by 2. In other words, if 2022 is 2022, I'm going to divide it by 2. I'm taking half the asset for depreciation. So I'm going to hit comma. So if it is in the half year, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that asset and I'm going to divide it by depreciation on new assets, right? And then I'm going to divide it by 2. So I'm taking half of it if it's into that year. Okay, let me go over it one more time. The first if logical statement we're making is if it's greater, I don't want to calculate it. Wouldn't make sense, right? The asset was purchased in another year, so we're not going to depreciate it. If it is in that year, I'm going to divide it by 2. And then if it is false, this is the last one, which means it is not greater than the year, it's not equal to the year, but it is less. 2022, this 16 million, now it's let's say 2023. We'll depreciate it 100%, not divide it by 2. So I'm going to take this amount and I'm going to divide it by the 30. Okay. So if you close it up, that would get correct. That would be correct. And I tell my students this. Now I want to drag this to the right and drag it down. I want to do one quick swoop. We have to put absolute values down. I recommend if you're beginning to do the depreciation, do it like I did. Solve the equation first, make sure you got it right, and then we're going to go back in there and start doing the dollar signs. When you get good at it, you're just going to do the dollar signs right away, make it absolute fixed cell so it doesn't drag or it does drag. So I want to make sure it's correct. So what we're going to do is I'm going to go to that C230. That's that year. I want to make sure if I drag it to the right, this is not dragging to the right. Those are letters up there. So what I'm going to do is hit function F4. That's going to make an absolute the cell and the column in the row. I'm going to hit it again, right? And then hit it a third time. I only want the dollar sign in front of the C. If I drag it to the right, I don't want the 2022 dragging to the right. However, if I drag it down, I do want that to drag down for 2023, 24, and 25. That's why I leave the row unchecked. Okay, next we're going to go to this one, right? I do not want this to, I do want this to drag to the columns, but not down. When I drag to the right, I want to hit 2023, 24, but when I drag it down, I don't want it to go down these numbers. So what I'm going to do is hit function F4 twice. I want the dollar sign in front of the row. And then all we're doing is the same thing again. I'm going to function F4 3 times. Go in front of this one again, hit this 2 times. And then now what I'm doing is the D230 is the asset, right? I don't want it to drag to the right because that's columns. I want it to drag down. So I'm going to hit function F4 3 times. I want that dollar sign in front of the letter so it doesn't drag, but the number is unchecked. And then the years, I want this function F4. I don't want it to drag to the right or down. So I'm going to hit that once. I have dollar signs in front of the row and the column. And then I'm going to do the same thing with this. I'm going to hit that 3 times, right? I want it to drag to the down, but not to the right. And that's divided by the years. And that's going to be function 4. So when you get good at this, I would recommend just do it as you're doing the equation. But a lot of times people will think of the equation and you get a little confused how you're doing it. Now you're doing the absolute values and that's getting even more confused. And now it's going to be messed up and you have to go back and look where you did it. So I recommend doing that last. So if you did it the way I did it, right, I'm going to highlight that and hit Control R and D, and it's so quick. It fills that quick. I don't like that those are highlighted, but hey, I made sure that the gray cell. I'll show you one thing you could do. One thing you could do in this example, I'm going to get out of there. I could hit Control C. I'm going to copy that. And I'm going to highlight this. And then I'm going to go Alt ES. I'm going to go to Formulas. And that's automatically going to fill it. And it doesn't bring that, that shade down. One option. Okay, just want to show that I have an equation to all those. But what happened was we're outside of that year and it's taking that blank, the quotes. Now, some financial modelers like having that little check in there, that little line. I like to have it blank, but. All right, next what we want to do is hit equals. I'm going to hit the sum function. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sum up the depreciation. And look what's going on. Depreciation of each year plus the depreciation of existing assets. Go to the right. There we go. Now we got our depreciation solved. Now let's plug in our application of it into our financial statements. We got the balance sheet. If you watch other videos, we cover this in the financial statement part. But it's good to do it from all different angles because you really get it down. So I'm going to do the balance. It's the balance of property, plant, and equipment. So that's going to be the previous. I'm going to subtract out the new depreciation. Actually, it's not going to be correct yet. And then what I want to do is add in our capital expenditures. And that's going to be our assumption, our capital expenditure. And then that's our long-term assets, drag to the right. Next, what I want to do is a cash flow statement. Now here, remember, depreciation on the income statement is not a direct cost. So what I want to do is, I don't want it showing up there, but I'm going to bring in that depreciation. And that's going to plug in our cash flow, show how much money we got. Drag to the right. And the net income's not correct because our income statement still needs our depreciation. So I'm going to equals, go all the way down to depreciation. There you go. So that is our straight line depreciation. Stay tuned for us. The video is going to go on. I'm going to show another example. Actually, I'm going to create another video for this, but I'll play off what we just did here. In the next video, what we did was, what if the depreciation goes on beyond the projected years, right? 25 years or 30 years is beyond the 5 years projected. What if we depreciate it just within 3 years? So it ends within the projected years. Watch the next video. I'll show you how to do it in the equation. Very similar. We have to add a couple things in. Like always, go to, if you want to get good at this, go to the grade, check out the grade, make sure you did everything correct. You got 100% on everything. Go back to financial statement. You want to practice this again, hit the reset the worksheet, and that's going to delete. It's going to delete everything that you plugged in, and you get to practice it, the depreciation. Again, check out the next video on depreciation. If it ends, the depreciation years, the assumption we make ends within the projected year, that means that last year would not count. Thank you, and please watch the next video.